Okay, so problem number 2 of the practice test you'll see over here on the following side. Fill in the table of conversions between fractions, mixed numbers, and percentage. They'll always be shown, and I have given the below table for that. Do not round or approximate. Now, it is absolutely, I think, very important to note that approximating means rounding in any way, shape, or form. So if we're going to approximate, we would round off to the nearest tenth or give some decimal approximation to something that should not be approximated. So our first thing here is to change the fraction 4/9 into a decimal and then a percentage. So converting a fraction into a decimal, we are going to take the numerator, that's the top number, and we're going to divide it by the denominator, that's the bottom number. One of my students one time said, oh, I'd take this one and I'd wrap it around the top of them, just like this. I take the 4 and I wrap it around with the 9. And then I'm going to put a decimal here after the 4, and I'm going to add a few zeros here so that I'm ready to divide this out. So 9 will not go into 4, as we know, since how this is a proper fraction. So I'll put a 0 out there, and then I'll bring the decimal up. And then 9 will go into 40. Well, that will go into 40. How many times? Well, let's see. 9 times 4 is going to give me 36. So 9 times 4 is giving me 36. So that will be with 4 left over. And then the next thing I do is bring down that extra 0. And 9 will go into 40 again 4 times. And that again is 36, and then again I'll subtract, and then that's going to have a 4 left over, and then I'll bring down again, and pretty soon I get to feeling like this is a broken record. So this is one of those cases where I want to use a bar over this to show that it's a repeating non-terminating decimal. So this is 0.4444444, so on and so forth, as a decimal. So I'll just put a bar over one or a couple of the 4's to indicate that that's the case. Now if I want to change a decimal to a percentage is a part of 100. So I need to change this into parts of 100. So if I look at this as 0.444444, so on and so forth, out of 1, and I want to say, okay, well, what is this equivalent to in terms of parts of 100? I could say to myself, well, what do I do to get from 1 to 100? Well, that would be multiplying by 100. So what I do to the denominator, I'm going to do to the numerator as well. And so multiplying by a factor of 100 moves this decimal 2 places to the right. That's the shortcut version. And so this is 44 point, and then 4444 continues to repeat just like that. So this number that's now on the top is my percentage. So this is 44.4444, so on and so forth, with a bar over it, percent, and that's my percentage. So what I have going on here is I have my value of 0.444 with a repeat, or 44.4444%. Now, this, incidentally enough, could also be notated in a different way. This 0.44444, that, by the way, is the same thing as this. So another way of notating this would be 44, and since 0.444444, so on and so forth, is 4/9, I could represent that as 44 and 4/9, just like that. So my decimal approximation is 0.4444 with a bar over the top of the 1 or a couple of 4's representing repeats, no non-terminating decimal there. And then changing that to a percentage by moving the decimal 2 places to the right, essentially. That will give us 44.4444%, which can also be represented as 44 and 4/9%. Now, moving right along to my next problem, we need to change 1.2 to both a fraction and to a percentage. So the percentage is quite easy. We just learned that we move the decimal 2 places to the right in order to change it to a percentage. So 1.2 as a percentage is going to be 120%. Now we can do a couple of things to get this back to a decimal, back to a fraction. So one thing I could do is I could say that this is 1 and 2 tenths, right? And just read that decimal, 1 and 2 tenths. Well, then I could say, oh, well, 2 tenths, that can get reduced by a factor of 2. So I'll divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2, and that's going to give me 1 and 2 divided by 2, which is 1, and 10 divided by 2, which is 5. That's 1 and 5, or 1/5. So that would be one way. Now another way that I could actually do that is I could say, well, this is 120, and that would be 100ths, right? Because a percentage is a part of 100. And then I could say, oh, well, I know these things are both divisible by 10 because they have a 10 down here, or a 0 at the end, so I know they're both divisible by 10. So that would give me a 12 divided by 10. And then I can look at these and they can both be divided by 2 again. So I can divide by a 2. And so this is going to be 12 divided by 2, which is 6. And then 10 divided by 2, which is a 5. And as I get that, then I have an improper fraction. And I've specified that I have fractions or mixed numbers. So this is an improper fraction, so that means it needs to be converted to a mixed number. So 5 will go into 6 one time with 1 left over, and then that goes over the original denominator of 5. And that would be another way to convert it to 1 and 1/5. All right, my last problem, I have the percentage, and I need to convert it to a decimal and then to a fraction as well. So I have a very simple conversion to from a percentage to a decimal. I'm just going to move this decimal 2 places to the left. So if we convert to a decimal to a percentage, it's to the right, and then going backward, it's 2 to the left. So, pardon, this number is 0.635. So there's my decimal representation of 63.5%, 0.635. Now, there are a couple of ways that I can change this to a fraction. One way would be that I could read this as 635, and then that would be tenths, hundredths, thousandths, or putting it over a factor of 10 with 3 zeros. Now, each of these would be certainly divisible by 5, so I could reduce that by dividing by 5 and dividing by 5. And 5 will go into 63 12 times with a 3 left over, so 5 will go into 35 7 times. And then 5 will go into 10 2 times, and 0 0 times, and 0 0 times. So checking it out, 200 times 5, is that 1,000? Yes. And 127 times 5, is that going to give me 635? Okay. Now I can look at this and I can go, well, this 200 only has factors of 2 and 5 in it. And there are no 2's or 5's here, so I know that that is reduced as much as possible. So that would be my answer. Now, as I said, this isn't the only way to do this problem. Another way of looking at this problem is I could say that this is 63 and 1/2%, right? Because 0.5 here, that's 0.5, that's representing half. Now I can change this to an improper fraction, so 63 times 2. So that would be, let's see, 2 times 63. That would be 3 times 2, which is 6. And then 2 times 6, which is 12. And then I want to add in that extra numerator 1. So I have 127, and then that's over 2. And then I say, well, that is divided by 100 because it's a percentage, right? So it's parts of 100. So anytime we divide, we multiply by the reciprocal, so that's 127 halves, and multiplied by 1 over 100. And then with fraction multiplication, I multiply across the numerators. 1 times 127, 127, and 2 times 100, so that's 200. And so we have the same exact answer as we had before, 127 over 200, just like this answer right here. So that would be our conversion to a fraction.